everyone. We're going to work on our mobile first layout some more. I'm going to take a little mini departure to show you some of the cool characteristics of Flexbox. And we have display flex applied to our unordered list. And you can see right here in the code over here. There is the flex direction. I want to point out a couple things you have available. You can reverse the order. If you set that to row reverse, everything starts on the right-hand side and then flows towards the left. So you're changing that all the way opposite. And notice I've made the UL a background color of some kind of like a dark blue, greenish blue. And then I just want to show you what this does. So we can reverse that as a row reverse. We can also set it as column. And as a column, for example, the home link is at the top, about's at the bottom. But if we do column reverse, we just reverse that. So now about is at the top and home is at the bottom. Okay. So that makes it really interesting. We're going to go back to, I'm just going to hit refresh. So we're back to a display of flex, standard column in standard order. I am going to display this, not display it, but flex direction of row, because I want to show you some other things that we can do with that. We're back to flex direction of row, and then justify content. All right, we'll go over a couple other ones here. Center. Oh, I undid my color for the UL. Let me just get that back. That's background color. 336699. Okay. So it's really helpful to see that. So I'll just show you the different justify content you have available. So if you want to center everything, that's a good way of doing it. And by the way, I'm just using the F12 key, gets me into this developer tool. We have flex end, flex start, so you can go back and forth, end or start. By the way, if you reversed the row and you did flex end, check this out. Flex end, notice how about's on the far right, and then home is just like everything builds out from that side. If I set this to row reverse, it will reverse it. It's the flex direction gets affected like here. So when we do a row reverse and a flex end, notice now it's basically the same as doing a row reverse and not setting anything here. So flex end now becomes what flex start used to be. So it gets kind of confusing because you can change the flow from left to right, right to left, top to bottom, or bottom to top. Okay, so keep all that in mind. I'm going to go back to row. Let me show you just a couple more settings on justify content that you may or may not want to use. So it's just up to you, but I just want you to see what's available. I'm going to skip most of this. Space around, space between, and space evenly are all very similar. Basically, it's a way of spacing out each of the children objects. In this case, all the children are the list items. So space around basically puts an even amount of space in between, and then whatever is left over, it puts on the far left and on the far right. It's almost like it's taking half of what you see here, putting it on the far left, half on the far right. Space between makes it so the far left and far right are exactly on the sides, and then it just fills in the gaps with whatever space it needs. And then finally, space, go back here. And then space evenly, just basically, it takes whatever is left over and it just evenly splits it out among all of the sides everywhere we go. These look a lot more strange when there's a different background color. So this might be something you might do without the background color. If you did space evenly, for example, spaces it out. Or you can use the same background color on the UL as you have on the links. There's a couple other things I want to go over with Flexbox related to this, and that is the list items. You can do some things with the list items. So now I'm going to add a little selector here, and I'm just going to say nav space list item. Okay, and we're going to do this thing called order. Order. Now, if I set default values order 1, everything has a priority of 1. Okay, but let's say I wanted to select the very first list item. So I do nav li : first First child. Yeah. And I give that an order of 1, it moves my home link to the far right. I guess default must be 0. And then let's do, I'm just going to add this one here. Let's say all of my list items have a value of 1, or order of 1. If they're, oops, not orphans. I don't even know what orphans is. So if all list items have an order of 1, and the first child, which is the home, has an order of 1, it doesn't make a difference, right? So if I give this an order of 2, now it's a higher number, so it moves it on the far left. So the higher the number, the more towards the end it goes. The lower the number, the more towards the beginning it goes, depending on whether it's reversed or not. This is really good if you ever want to like try to move one link on a nav bar to one particular location. You can play around with order to do that. Now there are other Flexbox styles over here. Basically what we've been doing is playing around with properties for the parent on the UL and properties for the children. The only one we did was order, and we did that on the list item, but there are others here. All you need to do is just Google Flexbox. Flexbox. You hit enter, always the first link because this is the best link. It's the best source of Flexbox you could possibly want. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to undo all that by hitting refresh. And let's work on styling this up a little bit. And so what I'd like to do is let's change our fonts. So we're going to use Google fonts for this, and let's style this just a little bit more. And I'll walk you through how to get Google fonts. And then on the styling, what we'll do is I'll just make some changes and show you what I did, because it's not a lot of changes. One thing I recommend you do for any website project, at this point, we don't really have any particular theme we're going for. So we're just going to kind of wing it. But you really want to have a theme, something in mind, like, you know, what is this website about? What are we doing this for? Who's going to be looking at it? What colors do we want? There's a lot of decisions that go into it. But without further instruction, without not really knowing where we're going to go, we're just going to pick basically 2 fonts. We're going to try to get a good font pairing, and they're going to be open source fonts that we don't have to download at all. We're just going to link to them from Google Fonts. And then I want to talk about creating a color palette. And so I'm going to use a thing called the Color Wizard to create a color palette. And it's just a quick, easy way of styling it up and just practicing the styles without necessarily having all the things in mind. So the first thing we'll do is do our fonts. So I'd like you to go to Google Fonts. I'm just going to Google Fonts. Why not? It's fonts.google.com. And one of the things I like to do is take a look either at featured, not featured, let's go back. Sorry, I want to search by, sort by trending, okay? What we're going to want to do is pick either our standard text font or our header font. And then we're going to create a pairing from that. So I'm going to start with headers. I like to begin with headers and then see what other things go with it. For a header, I'm not a fan of monospace. That's good for code, not really good for a site. Handwriting or display, it's up to you. I don't like handwriting because that's generally harder to read. But I'm willing to go look for some display fonts for our headers. Okay, so we can go, so basically we play around with these settings here. Okay, and you can scroll up and down. You have the name of the font, you have an example. And so you can go around until you find one. Now we could spend a long time doing this. So I'm going to just scroll down and pick one I've never done before in any of my tutorials. And so I'll come back when I have one picked out. Okay, hopefully you found one you like. So let's talk about how to add it. Now we're going to do what's called a font pairing. So we're actually going to do 2 fonts, one for our headers, one for our paragraphs, and anything else. So when you find one, I'm going to go with Righteous. Righteous. And so if I want to add this, I just click the plus for add. That's standard, right? And then I'm actually going to click on Righteous. I have it selected. See, one family selected. And I'm going to scroll down. Looks pretty cool. I like it. Oh, look at this. We have popular pairings with righteous. Now, interestingly enough, the popular pairings, it's kind of interesting because I've noticed they're all the same. It's always take this and then add it with Open Sans, Roboto, Lato, Oswald, Railway. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of interesting that they do that on all these. But what's cool is you can click Oswald, for example, and see what that looks like. Can I argue, don't use this for a paragraph of text. It's just not easy on the eyes. It's not going to help your readability. And so Oswald might be good for a header, but I wouldn't do it for a paragraph. Lato's always good. That's been a standard one for a long time. Roboto works really well. Open Sans. One of the things I like about Open Sans, it's a little bit bigger of a font. I think that's probably a better one for you. And it just really depends on the different ones that you see here. Let's say you like Open Sans. Now, if you don't, you can look at other ones. You don't have to use these pairings. But if you do choose one, and let's say you're going to go with Open Sans, click the plus sign here and check it out. Click where it says two families selected, and you have this thing that says embed font. Make sure you use standard. Do not do import. Add import. Add import slows everything down. And you have to wait for this thing to load until you can do any other styles. It's not a good idea. I would go ahead and copy the link. So you just right click and copy. And in this case, this link is linking to two families, Open Sans and Righteous. Okay? And then you see specify in CSS. So you're just going to copy this, and you're going to put it in the head of the HTML document. So I have to scroll up here. Let's just zoom over a bit. And you see you have that link to the style sheet. We're just going to link to the font right after that. And I need to toggle soft wrap so you can see it all on one screen. So you see how we have a link to the style sheet and now a link to these fonts. Once you link, you can then target these. Now, the cool thing about the link is, and not using the @import, is if for some reason you don't, this thing takes a little longer to load, you can still display your page with all other styles applied. And then as soon as that loads, it will then show your fonts. However, we haven't set the fonts. In fact, one of the things that we're going to want to do is make use of the cascade to do this. So what I mean by that is we're going to apply one font to everything. And that's going to be the one we want for our paragraphs and standard text. So what I'm going to do is go over to my navigation style sheet. And actually, technically, it's not navigation, is it? Because this is more about general styles. Okay. We're also going to do a mobile first approach. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to link to another style sheet. So I'm going to actually just copy this link. I'm going to paste it on the next line. I'm going to do all of my style sheet links in one line here. And I'm going to change navigation to general. So this is going to be all my general styles. Now this is just, now you could literally just have one style sheet called styles. And you can put all of your style sheets on there, and that's fine. It actually makes sense. The only problem is with the more styles you add, the harder it is to find what you're looking for. So if I just put all of my navigation-based styles in navigation, and I do anything that's just kind of general in my general style sheet, you know, as long as I know what I'm putting in navigation, what I'm putting in general. By the way, I'm going to do another one called layout, so you might as well just link to it now. I'm just going to go paste this in, and I'm going to call it layout. Now, we're not going to do layout anytime soon. Okay. When we get to layout, I'll remind you that you need this link. For now, we're just going to link. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't hurt anything. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a general style sheet. So I'm actually going to copy the file name right from here. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to go over into the window that has navigation on the right, and I'm going to do Control. Actually, no, I'm going to type A. Actually, I can't type A in the window, or it will actually put the character A. But if I go over here, I click that folder and then type A, it now prompts me to save the file. You can also just right-click and do New File, or you can click New, whatever. I like to just click here, type A, and you'll see right at the top it says CSS /. I'm going to type general.css. I copied it, but I forgot. Okay. So I click that, it's over here. I'm gonna do a little comment again. I'm gonna paste that. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some styles to the body. And by the way, general is really gonna be for, we're not really gonna separate out different screen widths. So we're not gonna do anything with media queries. We're just gonna do some general CSS styles. So I'm gonna extend this. This is a comment. I'm going to extend it multiple lines. And I'm just going to add on here general typography and colors. Okay. I'm going to do anything that has to do with typography or color. We're going to put in here, and that's it, basically. On the body, we're going to set the font family. And this is where we need the code. So actually, I'm gonna go back over to here. I'm gonna scroll down. You see where it says specify in CSS? This is where I want to drop it. So I'm gonna take the open sans, comma sans serif, and copy that. And I'm gonna go back here, and I'm just gonna highlight all this. And for my body, that sounds weird. For my body selector, I'm gonna set the font family. Okay, font family open sans. I'm going to save my changes. If my link, by the way, I want to save both changes in index and in general. And let's go back to our page and just see if it's working. Hit refresh. Aha, it worked. Okay, so that works. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to target all headers. We're going to do that using commas. H1, comma H2, comma H3, comma H4, comma H5. By the way, if you're going to an H5 or an H6, you've probably really overcomplicated things, and I don't recommend you do it. But if you're going to style it, it doesn't hurt to do that like this. I'm going to save my changes. I'm going to go back over here. And sorry, I want to go back to this. And now I want to get this where it says font family righteous, cursive, copy that. And I'm going to paste that right there. Save my changes. And go back here. And when I hit refresh, website project looks different. See that? There you have it. So we just added general.css. We added some styles there. As much as I'm dying to talk about colors, I've pretty much run out of time. So stay tuned for my next tutorial where I give a full-blown video all about color options, how to set colors, and some strategies for doing so. So stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you so much for watching.